begin tonight with former Department of Agrarian Reform Secretary and now PDP Laban Senatorial Aspirant John Castriciones. Good evening, Mr. Castriciones.
Hello, good evening, Ravi. Good evening, Ami and Ed. Good evening to all of you, and of course to all your viewers. Good evening.
Tumatakbo po sa pagkasenador. And of course, it wouldn't be surprise anyone, former Agrarian Reform Secretary, nabanggit nyo na nga po, among other things that you want to do, you want to improve the Agrarian Reform Program. Ilang dekada na po tayong ginagawa dito. Some people are saying it's time to declare it a failed experiment. Some people are saying it's still all about implementation. But that whole line about it's all about implementation, maybe a little tweak here and there, but people are getting tired of that also and getting jaded. What really, seriously, can still be improved, you believe, with the Agrarian Reform Program?
Well, first and foremost, there was some sort of an error when it comes to the implementation of the provisions of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. Well, for a start, did you know that the accomplishment of the Department of Agrarian Reform since its inception way back, let's say 1988, there are actually 1.3 million hectares of land which were distributed through collective CLOAs. And when you say collective CLOAs, it means that there's only one title for, let's say, 1,000 or hundreds of farmers. And so there's a problem in that because instead of really resolving the issue of agrarian reform, or should we say land reform, the farmers are fighting each other because they do not know which portion of the land is theirs. Secondly, they are unable to pay their amortizations with land bank. The local government units cannot collect taxes from them because they don't even know which specific area is theirs. And finally, there is no improvement when it comes to investments because no people would dare to invest in lands which are not owned by people. And so, because of that, we borrowed actually 90 billion pesos from World Bank just to undo what has been done in the past administrations. And we call this now the split program or the support to parcelization of land individual titles. This is just one of the so-called errors in the implementation of the Department of Agrarian Reform. But of course, aside from that, from my point of view, having been the secretary for at least 4 years since I was appointed in 2017, I believe and I strongly believe that we should continue the distribution of lands to our farmers because we were not able to attain the very purpose and essence of the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program, and that is supposedly industrialization. And there's a long story behind that, and I hope that I will be able to relay it to you tonight, to our viewers.
Okay.
Umpisan nyo na, kasi meron ding mga argument na it hasn't worked kasi daw yung economies of scale, mas efficient daw yung malalaking agricultural estates. Meron ding ganong klaseng argument. Of course, the law allowed, merong mga grupo na they were able to hold on to their large estates actually because of a loophole that was introduced in CARP, no? Paano naman, ano ang tingin nyo dun sa argument na yan?
Well, tama rin yun, Ami. That's correct. As a matter of fact, meron tayong isang ehemplo niyan. Yung tinatawag na Dole Philippines. I don't know if you're aware of this, the Dole Philippines in South Cotabato. Actually, that is an agrarian reform land that was distributed. It consists of around 6,000 hectares. Now, what happened was that this was subdivided and were given to our agrarian reform beneficiaries. But later on, pinagsama-sama po nila yung kanilang mga lupa at pagkatapos they entered into a memorandum of agreement with a multinational corporation, which is of course the Dole. And thereafter, because of that, their lands were paid with the rentals because it was leased to this multinational corporation. And the ones who were hired as workers were the agrarian reform beneficiaries themselves. And you know, this is a very ideal example of the concept of economies of scale. And this is what we're doing actually. We have created around 5,280 agrarian reform beneficiary organizations nationwide. And that is actually one of the models that we are trying to imitate because if we do that, definitely we will be able to achieve the very purpose and essence of enriching the lives of our farmers.
But doon po sa example ng Dole, how replicable would that be given that, you know, it's not as if nag-upisa tayo sa agrarian reform at tapos inorganize natin sila. No. I mean, Dole was there to start with. Diba? They started with the economies of scale to start with. They had that scale to start with. Then pumasok ang agrarian reform. That's basically, we just found a way to, look, how do we somehow strike a balance here and so on. But whether or not that's successful, I guess the point is how replicable is that, given that that is not where the rest of the country is coming from?
Well, it's replicable, Robbie. As a matter of fact, it's just one of the models. There are a lot of agrarian reform beneficiary organizations that have not entered into an agreement with the multinational corporations, and yet they're doing well. Their own cooperatives are doing well. We can actually mention some of them somewhere in Central Luzon and also in the Calabarzon area. These are all very progressive agrarian reform beneficiary organizations. They started with a very small capital, but now they have billions in their coffers, which means that it can really be achieved if you actually employ the so-called economies of scale. But, you know, from another point of view, we are trying to set aside the concept of survival farming, yung isang kahit isang tuta. Because yung isang kahit isang tuta, definitely it will not work. We have to encourage our farmers to become entrepreneurs themselves, and that's the reason why the support services must be enhanced. And that was actually the kind of support that I really gave to our farmers at the time when there was this so-called realization that we need the farmers to organize themselves, create cooperatives, and have to look at their profession as farmers as a way within which they would become entrepreneurs themselves. And it became successful, and that is the model that we are trying to promote nationwide.
Yes, sir. Well, sir, so far, sir, we've been talking about the problems with beneficiaries and their sustainability. I'd like to focus on the other aspect, which is the problem with landowners and the refusal to have their lands put under agrarian reform. Around a decade ago, we were looking into that with the PCIJ, and significant paying numbers, at least a decade ago. I wonder now where we are as far as putting lands under land reform.
Well, actually, the reality is that way back in 2014, the issuance of the notice of coverage has actually ended already, which means that there is no longer acquisition that is being initiated by the government in order to take lands, private lands that belong to landowners. What has been left behind are those lands which have been served with the notice of coverage way back 2014. And as per our inventory, from the time that I stepped down as the Secretary of the Department of Agrarian Reform, we still have around 520,000 hectares of land, which are still distributable. But, you know, the problem here is that 300,000 hectares of these 520,000 hectares are problematic, meaning that there are pending cases right now which are still, that can be resolved and will still be resolved, and that 100,000 hectares here are actually with BARM, and another 100,000 hectares would be free for distribution. But, you know, we are looking for ways within which we would be able to tap other sources of lands that can be distributed to our farmers. And one of it is the EO75 that has been signed by President Rodrigo Duterte, wherein idle government-owned lands can also be distributed to our farmers for free. And as per our inventory, there are around 220,000 hectares of idle government-owned lands that can be distributed to our farmers, including agricultural graduates, those who retired from the AFP and the Philippine National Police, and even rebel returnees.
Sir, these are lands that are farmable. I mean, dito sa taas ng bundok kasi medyo malaki-laking hectares yung pag-usapan ninyo eh. I'm wondering where those are eh.
You know, we only distribute agricultural lands. We do not distribute lands that are located in the mountains. Anything that is beyond 30 degrees in slope, definitely that cannot be distributed.
Well, apart from land distribution, you have to make the farm viable, no? We talked to Secretary Manny Piñol this week. Sabi niya, one of the biggest problems of farmers is the antiquated marketing system. Kaya daw katakot-takot ang middleman, ang mura-mura ng binibenta ng farmers, tapos halos wala nang kitain. Do you have any suggestions as well kung manalo kayo na to confront this problem?
Of course, although that is the area of jurisdiction of the Department of Agriculture, I would also want to contribute my ideas on how we would be able to market the products of our farmers. And the best way to do that is to make the condition really favorable for marketing. And that is the reason why there must be some infrastructures that must be built in order to see to it that our farmers would be able to reach the market, like the farm-to-market roads, and also the transportation. That is very important. We must have to enhance these so-called factors so that our farmers would be able to reach the markets. And it's a good thing that right now we have new technology like the internet, wherein our farmers who are technologically knowledgeable when it comes to these kinds of modern technologies would be able to directly offer their products or their produce not only to a certain market but to the whole world, as a matter of fact. And I think this has been done not only here in the Philippines, but of course Thailand is spearheading this kind of marketing their products to the world market.
Kanina po nabanggit natin that as we try to allow economies of scale even within an agrarian reform paradigm, sabi nyo nga po, meron namang mga successful. Alam din natin merong mga hindi successful. But whether it's a cooperative or any other form of trying to get farmers together so that they can have economies of scale, what allows some cooperatives to succeed? And I guess more importantly, why do many cooperatives do not succeed?
Well, first and foremost, some cooperatives have a very progressive mind, meaning they accept changes. We all know that to become competitive nowadays, we must have to have some sort of modernization when it comes to our agricultural goals. Like, for example, one case in point is that of Israel. Israel has a very modern technology when it comes to agriculture. And I think it would be good if we follow that kind of model wherein we have to encourage our farmers to really resort into some sort of a modern form of technology in trying to approach agriculture. Because that's the only way when they can become entrepreneurs, they would have to produce surpluses when it comes to their products, so that it would not only be for their consumption, but it also would be good for the market and for our citizens as a whole. And that's the reason why when I was the secretary, I always encourage our farmers to really resort into some sort of a training that would have to equip them with modern technology when it comes to farming. And we did not stop by just distributing parcels of land, but we also distributed tractors, support services such as solar-powered irrigation system, also fertilizers, and also farm tools and implements, and other tools that would have to modernize the kind of farming that we have right now. But the irony of it all is that the Department of Agrarian Reform has a very small budget when it comes to support services. Most of the budget are actually under the Department of Agriculture. They have billions and billions of pesos for these kinds of purposes. But for us, our main mandate is to distribute lands, parcels of lands, but we have to encourage them also to somehow adjust on how they would be able to manage their lands, because most of our beneficiaries for the longest time have been tenants. They have been tenants for 20 to 30 years. Now, from the time that they receive that parcel of land, they do not know what to do when they're already emancipated from that land. And that is the reason why we would like to encourage them to be given some sort of an idea on how to manage their own lands.
Attorney, can I digress? Kasi kulang tayo ng oras eh. Can I to politics? You're quite active in PDP laban. Kukumustahin ko lang po yung party kasi today sabi ni Senator Manny Pacquiao, okay lang daw sa kanya kung i-endorse siya ni President Duterte in case maging ma-formalize yung withdrawal ni Senator Bongo as presidential standard bearer ng party faction ninyo. Kumusta na po yung party?
Well, as you know, there is a pending issue with regards to the recognition of a PDP laban, whether it's the Pimentel Wing or the Pusi Wing. That's one. And secondly, there was an earlier pronouncement by Senator Bongo that he is withdrawing as our presidential standard bearer. But nothing is final, not unless he really withdraws his certificate of candidacy from COMELEC. And there are insinuations to the effect that there would be some sort of an anointing of a new presidential candidate. But of course, this can only be true when there is already a real action coming from our leaders who would be anointing a new candidate aside from Senator Bongo. But you know, as a candidate, personally, what I would like to inform the body is that, you know, I've been very active when it comes to the concept of federalism. Way back 2014, we have already campaigned for federalism, and that's the reason why I founded the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. You know, I'm the founder of the PFP.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Which is actually the party that is now being used by Bongbong Marcos.
Yes, sir.
But that's another story. That's another story.
Yes, sir. But we want to get into that. I was meaning to ask you about that.
Ano nga, are you still active in that party?
Well, as you know, there are some issues that are now pending and a wing under the so-called Mangelan wing. They filed a case in the COMELEC stating that BBM should not be chosen as the standard bearer because in the first place they said that those who actually anointed him as a chairman of the party do not have the right to really choose him as the standard bearer for the party. Well, I'm not dipping my fingers into that bowl as yet because I am not yet involved. But one thing that is for sure is that I was really the founder of that party, and I hope that I will not be dragged into that issue. For
Yes,
right
sir.
now, I am at peace with myself being a candidate under PDP Laban.
Yes, sir. But that begs the question, why are you not running under the party that you founded?
And I think that would be very... can we leave it at that for the meantime?
Sir naman eh.
There will be a right time for that when we discuss that matter.
No, but if you don't mind, sir, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll press the bit because, you know, any other person, we will think, you know, we can take it at that. Total, as everybody says, hindi rin naman puli sa inyo. Everybody says the party system in the Philippines is wala rin naman, mahina rin naman. But you're the founder. You know, it's not often that we can ask that of a founder of a party, not running. So if you don't mind, sir, I mean, what would be your explanation for that?
Secret.
Sir, let me put it this way, sir. Kasi in a previous conversation with Undersecretary DILG, Undersecretary
Densing.
Densing,
Hindi
yun,
yun.
si Densing, your colleague Yusek Densing, intimated to us, I don't, maybe I shouldn't use that word, told us na there was some sort of a power struggle within the Partido Federal, and there are people who with whom they do not agree with who have taken over. I wonder where you belong in that spectrum. Kasi I understand you were the founder, and I think you were also the chairman, if not the president.
Well, you know, that information coming from the undersecretary might not be a competent information because in the first place he's not a member of the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas. So I let it remain that way. For now, I think I would have to just be quiet about it. There will be an appropriate time for that, and I hope that you would respect that. I'm sorry, I'm really very sorry.
Sige, PDP laban na lang.
Okay.
May pag-asa pa bang mag-unite yung two factions? Consider Senator Pacquiao is saying na willing siyang magpa-endorse kay President Duterte.
Well, there's a saying, there is no permanent friends, permanent enemies, di ba? Only permanent interests. So it might be possible. It might be possible. That is something that can be looked forward to because unity is very, very important when it comes to politics.
Meron bang active overtures from the other camp, or are there active initiatives to get together again to unite?
Not that I am aware of. Not that I'm aware of, but still there is a pending case in COMELEC right now. And probably if there would be initiative coming from both parties to really reconcile, I think that would be a welcome gesture for as long as that they would submit themselves under the leadership of our wing.
Yes, sir. Sir, may binitawan kasing mga salita si Attorney Panelo the other night that left us kind of discombobulated. Well, of course, sabi niya, quoting the president is going to endorse somebody for the presidency in the next few days. That much is clear daw. Pero dagdag ni Attorney Panelo, in all likelihood daw, it's not going to be a choice among those who have already filed their COCs for president. In other words, according to Secretary Panelo, but this is his version of things, the president may endorse somebody else who has not yet filed a COC, despite it being way past the deadline for the filing of COCs and substitutions. I'm wondering what we know of from the PDP Laban as far as that is concerned. Is that even an option, or is that just Attorney Panelo talking?
Well, I don't know if that's legally feasible because the filing of the certificate of candidacy has already lapsed, and I don't know of any legal possibility that a person who has not filed his certificate of candidacy can become the standard bearer of a certain political party. But, you know, we leave it to Secretary Panelo, who is a legal giant and who knows a lot of legal remedies to this. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that there is any way within which a certain candidate can still become a standard bearer when he has not filed the certificate of candidacy at all.
So that only leaves the option, I suppose, of choosing among those who have already filed their COCs or substituted by November 15.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think that's the well, from my point of view, I think that should be that way.
Yes, sir. Wala kayo na pag-uusapan sa partido kung sino yun.
Wala pa.
Alam mo naman, doon ako patungo eh.
Maraming controversies ang pinapalabas na dito.
Ay, sir, dagdagan pa natin. Ibabalik ko sa Partido Federal. Abubakar Mangelen, yung petition niya, and his claim that he's still the chairman, and on that basis, on that stature, he's claiming that he has standing to challenge even the membership of Bongbong Marcos in Partido Federal, and on that basis, he's saying invalid ang certificate of candidacy ni Bongbong Marcos. Let's start with Mangelen. May katatayuan po ba siya sa Partido Federal?
Robbie, talagang you are really pushing the issue. Well, let me just give you some sort of an idea. If my party mates would recall, under the Partido Federal ng Pilipinas, there was a General Assembly that was launched way back 2018. I think that was 2018. Wherein it was held in that assembly through the concurrence of all the members that I would be the president and the interim chairman at the same time, subject to the turning over of the chairmanship to President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. And there was an instruction to the effect that the Secretary General must register this resolution, which was approved by the General Assembly, to the COMELEC, but it was not followed. Okay, that's the only information that I can give right now, because as far as the General Assembly is concerned, that was never overruled. Okay.
So, sir, you're saying, if I'm getting you correctly, and tell me if I'm getting this correctly, you're saying if that had been followed, then you would still be chairman and interim president of PFP?
The president and the interim chairman. The president and the interim chairman.
Yes, sir. That's what you're saying. Now, if the instruction had been followed, then you would still be the current president and interim chairman.
The president and the interim chairman. Yeah.
Okay, but because it was not executed, who's the chairman?
Well, Recip Selectutur, it's already there. You know who.
Okay. Sir, pinapahirapan mo naman kami. Sabay kamot si sir. Okay, sir. Well, sir, last na from me. And I hope you I hope unlakan mo ako dito. So tama ba the impression I'm getting na it was not a pleasant parting of ways, and there's disagreement as to the leadership of the Partido Federal, at least when you left?
Well, definitely. There have been confusions there.
Okay. Oh. So, sir, tama si Densing.
Okay.
Confusions. Because that was an opinion coming from a third party, not
Yes, sir.
involved in the party itself.
Yes, sir. We understand,
Those
sir.
are just
Sige. Anyway, naubusan po tayo ng oras, but former Agrarian Reform Secretary John Castriciones, sir, maraming salamat
sir.
po. We'll
We
have
hope
you
to
back
have you
again.
again.
And
Yeah.
now, alam nyo na po kung ano pag-uusapan.
yeah, sure.
Itutuloy
And
natin.
I hope that you would also discuss about our 10-point agenda.
Apa.
This is very important.
Apa.
Sir, wala pang kampanya, sir. Babalik tayo dyan. Wala pa yung kampanya.
Apa.
Thank you, sir. Ingat po.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Thank you, Ami and Robbie. Thank you so
Apa.
much for giving me this opportunity.
Si Secretary Castriciones po running for the Senate under PDP Laban. Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back.